Hello, everyone. It is Friday. I haven't seen you for a while. It is Friday, April 3rd of 2026. Dr. Patrick Scott. And I'm excited, to be here with you today. It's been a while. I was in Hawaii for 2.5 weeks, as I do every March and September, at the 72nd HUNA workshop on the Big Island of Hawaii. I had a wonderful time. It was a lovely group. As you know, I've been doing that for many, many years and teach there. And this time I was learning a new curriculum. I was learning level 3 curriculum. So I didn't teach really very much at all and just audited other teachers' classes. And it was so cool to just be a student and just learn. And I took notes in my little journal, and it was really, really great. A lovely group, a lovely time was had by all. As you know, there were big storms in Kona, and those impacted travel for people to get there. But ultimately, the weather improved, and we all had just a wonderful time. Today, I want to talk about, I want to talk about emotional regulation. I mean, that's really what it is. I'm, as many of us are, kind of nerdy about human behavior. I've been a student of human behavior my whole life, and I do find human behavior fascinating. And for allegedly being an expert with all my college and all my years, I do sometimes smile and kind of scratch my head about human behavior and why humans choose the behaviors what they do. I want to let you in on a colloquial or modern terminology for emotional dysregulation. Let me see if I can find it. And the term is crash out. And I kept hearing as I go through, YouTube videos. I love watching body cam videos of police officers, and just I don't know. I just find that interesting. And again, if you want to see somebody having a bad day, either ER or police or first responders see the worst of the worst. So in the modern vernacular, particularly among Gen Z on social media, to crash out means to lose control, have an emotional breakdown, or explode in anger over a stressful situation. It describes reacting to stress, heartbreak, or frustration with intense, often public, erratic behavior or snapping rather than a quiet breakdown. Key aspects include actionable rage. It frequently implies a reckless overreaction or rage quitting a job, school, or relationship. TikTok origin. The term is popular on TikTok, where users create crash out videos showing emotional meltdowns, screaming, or cathartic rants. Third, origin. Rooted in African American vernacular English and early 2010s Black Twitter, it likely evolved from crash dummy, referring to someone engaging in self-destructive behavior. Number 4, distinction is different from crashing or falling asleep, or simply being stressed and involves an active outburst. And finally, number 5, example usage: I'm about to crash out if I get another email, or she absolutely crashed out after they got in a fight. Some users on Reddit suggest the term implies acting without care for consequences. It can be used both to describe a minor humorous annoyance or a genuinely dangerous, unhinged reaction. And so that is what it means to crash out. And what's so cool about the access that we have to technology is it's really fun for me to be able to find out, because I work with a lot of Gen Z and Gen Alpha and young people, and they use language. I think it's always been that way, but they use language I just don't understand. And so rather than ask them, when you say your mom crashed out at the mall, to me, an older person, that means she crashed, meaning she went to sleep. Oh, no, no, no. My mom lost her mind. My mom went crazy. My mom, had a fit, that kind of thing. So how do we, well, first of all, couple statistics, just information for you. Negative emotions are costly to the body. So I know it feels good to rant. I know it feels good to vent sometimes. Studies show that years ago, when we did, more of a cathartic therapy where people would be encouraged to just let it out and just vent, and certainly around the whole critical incident stress debriefing thing about just talk about the trauma, talk about the event. We've learned in recent decades that actually to reignite the trauma, to reignite the emotion, to have to go through the emotion again isn't so helpful. We also know that long-term longitudinal studies of emotional dysregulation verify that it's just really hard on the cardiovascular system. It's hard on the endocrine system. and so on. And so people come into the clinic. I'm at the clinic today. I'm in my new office, very lovely office, corner office, window. Uh, it's a little smaller actually, but it's quiet. It's off the beaten path. I did the hypnosis sessions this week, and no, but there were no screaming kids, nobody in the break room, nobody at the veterans group laughing and scratching as they do in that group. Um, and so we do know that what's in it for you. You know, who know we talk about baggage. We talk about emotional release of negativity, negative emotions, limiting decisions, things like that. Um, it would serve you to not freak out. I'm sorry. And what I'm seeing online, certainly I know some of these things are staged, you know, where it's just a skit, you know, and people losing their mind and it's entertaining, you know. Why I like watching body cam footage of police. I mean, that may seem weird to you, but I was a first responder for many years, and I I am so pleased. I have a core value of accountability. I have a core value of integrity, and the body cams worn by the police. Now, I am not saying the police are always right. I am not saying the police don't lose their shit sometimes and become emotionally dysregulated. I would too. My God, if I had to put up with it. This is not a case for that all police are perfect and criminals or people being pulled over or not. But the body cam has nipped in the bud thousands and thousands of lawsuits, erroneous lawsuits about police brutality and manhandling and being inappropriately arrested and all that sort of thing, because you can see on the body cam worn by the officer or on the car, the camera that's posted on the car that points forward, you hear every word, you see every action. And I think this is where my family and friends kind of get crazy. I'm still shocked that people lie. I mean, I know we all lie at some, you know, we all lie about how we're doing and we lie, but I mean, that people will, I've watched some of these body cam videos where it's on camera, like shoplifting, you know, that they're on literally on camera, stealing the stuff, going out of the store with the shopping cart full of $1,000 worth of unpaid for merchandise. And they just lie through their teeth. And I just think that's, for me, interesting. And even people that know me to say, you've been working in mental health all these years, you don't realize that people lie. I do. I just still kind of go, really? You're gonna lie? I mean, wow, you know. Um, and this is under the guise of human behavior, right? I remember working very closely with the police departments, many police departments over the years, and you know, I was a social worker in emergency medicine, and they would bring in people in custody and criminals and all that kind of stuff. And I got to know many and work with many police officers in my career. I really love them, and just my heart goes out to them. They work so hard, and what a job, man. Boy, you think you're having a hard day? Whew. And I just remember I'm there in a therapeutic position, trying to get information to help the family, the client, the patient, after a situation. And I had one police officer, and this was in Pasadena, California. He said he watched me with a family member. There was a car accident, and he was there, you know, with the accident report. And we were kind of collaborating really to talk about the accident and how what the status of the person that was in the trauma room was. And he looked at me and he goes, "What's it like to not have everyone lie to you all day, every day?" And I stopped. I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "In my business, we know that pretty much most people, most of the time, are lying to us. And if you watch some of this body cam footage, it's just fascinating. You know, the person is clocked going 100 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. It's on the radar, it was that. And they just sit there and say, no, that wasn't me. No, I was not speeding. I was not. I was not. I was not. They will just continue to deny. And I just think it's interesting. So it comes up lately. Now, you know, I have a broader view when we talk in HUNA about the laws of cycles and rhythms, that this too shall pass. There have been economic things before. There have been high gas prices before. There have been energy shortages, gas shortages before. There have been wars before. There have been politically inappropriate wars before. There have been presidents before. That, like I told you about when I do these elder senior evaluations, and I'll say, well, you know, sir, who's the president of the United States? And they say, that idiot. Now, that idiot spanned about 8 presidents. Every president was an idiot. The person, of course, couldn't remember the name of the president, but the attribution was that the president's an idiot. Um, and how it's going right now, in that we are very polarized. And so, what I want to challenge you by virtue of this video today is to really look at your triggers. What are some things that really get you going? What really pisses you off? What really is a pet peeve of yours? And I'm going to challenge you to consider some of the prerequisites for change. I put it in the newsletter just recently. This idea that our baggage is ours. This is not a popular opinion, by the way. If you're having a feeling, however justified, it's yours. I'm going to say that again. If something's going on outside you and you are having a feeling about it, whether it's a historical artifact, a trauma, anything else, it's yours. You can blame and find fault with the thing, the person, the situation, and you may be fully justified. The good news and the bad news is that it's only you can handle it. Only you can fix it. A lot of political stuff, very polarized, one side and the other. I consider myself apolitical, but I'm human. I have feelings. You did hear me talk about the ICE raids in Minnesota, my home state where I live. I happen to have a person in my family that was directly impacted by it. His business shut down for 2 months because his business runs with largely brown people of color, and it wasn't safe to be in public. Now he's back at work. He's several months behind in his bills. They did pay a portion of that time. It wasn't all unpaid leave. And I'm very happy with but that touched my heart because it touched my neighborhood. It touched my people. It touched my state, literally within a few blocks of where I live. These things were happening. The 2 people were shot within a few blocks of where I live. George Floyd was shot right by my college apartment. And so it's easy to point, we look at weird otherworldly places like Iran or Israel or Gaza or anywhere, China or any place that's not right in our backyard, and it's easy for us because we are, as Americans, pretty spoiled. We live a very luxurious lifestyle. Now I can say that because I've lived in Europe, I've lived around the world, I've traveled quite a lot. I just remember Abraham Maslow. Some of you know Abraham Maslow from the hierarchy of needs, and some of you don't know that. You remember if you took Psychology 101, that he said that humans have basic needs. They have a need for survival and basic food, clothing, and shelter at the bottom. And then they have other higher ordered needs. And that therapy addresses the higher ordered needs. And that if someone is not meeting their need for survival, that they're depressed or that they're, whatever, doesn't really matter. And so that's why therapy with a homeless population doesn't really happen. Just we do other things. We do concrete services and house them and try to get them jobs and things like that. But in terms of doing insight-oriented psychotherapy with someone who's an addict and or living on the street and just literally every day try to eke out a survival, and that's why a lot of third world countries. And this is not a slam. This is just This is not even a criticism. It's just what's so. In many cultures around the world, the idea of therapy is kind of stupid. It's like, what? I'm going to go sit in a room with a stranger and talk about my problems? What's that? And there are cultures, like I'm working a lot with Japan now, and they're sort of coming into this idea around education and treatment and therapy. But very much so, a couple generations ago, you don't do therapy. The Philippines, you don't do therapy. Therapy, I mean, psychotherapy. It's just kind of this weird sort of like, why would, and from my mother's generation, my mother with a bourbon in one hand and a cigarette in the other would say in her gravelly voice, "Honey, I've never been depressed a day in my life." And I don't know that she was. If she was, she never would admit it. Um, and she thought that anyone that needed therapy or needed to see a doctor for medication was weak. And I think that that's an old thing. I'm happy to report that therapeutic services, my gosh, we're so busy here because even with our veterans population or our neurohypnotic sciences or our psychiatry division or our therapy or clinical services division, we're busy, man. We're just really busy. And more, even we see a lot of kids and a lot of teenagers, apparently it's cool to have a therapist. If you're in middle school, it's super cool to have a therapist, and to have a place where you can bounce ideas off. And so I think that whole stigma against mental health is changing. When we first opened Heads Up in 2000, well, we started in 2007 or six, and we opened in 2008. We were in the housing authority by the city of Las Vegas, and within a few block radius, there were 16,000 housing authority. Now, these are the projects. City of Las Vegas, it was a partnership with the housing authority, with Medicare, Medicaid, VA, TRICARE, and so on. And in the first year, knowing that there were 16,000 residents within a 2 or 3 block radius, we saw 27 housing authority patients, people that came to us voluntarily. What we learned is that a couple of things. We would go door to door, we would have festivals, we would have satellite offices with food and with drinks and refreshments, and we would try to have groups, and we could not give it away. Could not give it. Well, we did give it away because certainly it wouldn't have cost the patients anything, but we could not give it away. And we would go door to door, and I just remember this kind of just knocking on doors, and people would answer the door, and this is the projects. And I'd usually have a student or two with me, and we'd say, "Hi, Dr. Scott with Heads Up," or, just seeing how you're doing. And so many of them, they were actually very nice, very kind. Some of them weren't, but most of them were pleasant and civil. And they just said, "Look, do you have a check for me? Do you have a job for me? Do you have food for me? Do you have food stamps for me? Listen, do you have a concrete thing that I can eat today?" Or if concrete is, "Of course I'm depressed, I'm unemployed. Of course I'm depressed, I can't buy beer. Of course I'm depressed, I'm out of cigarettes." And this is not a slam, this isn't a criticism. They told me very clearly that at their level with multi-generational housing authority dwelling, that there were 3, 4 generations that had known nothing else. There wasn't the idea of talking about their problems wasn't even on the radar. It was like, well, thank you, but if you have a check or if you have some cash, I could use that. And if you think about homeless people, that are washing windows or they're panhandling or whatever, you could sit down with them and talk, and I'm sure they'd appreciate it, but they need the survival stuff. And so survival is a higher or a lower ordered need. Actually, it's a basic human need. And when we're not meeting our needs for food, clothing, and shelter, the other stuff, I'm depressed, or my mom looked at me cross-eyed when I was 15 or whatever it was. Proof of this, I worked in the ER. One day, I would end up fielding patient complaints. It wasn't really my job, but sometimes people would walk into the emergency room and they would say, "I need to speak to somebody, I've got my record here and there's some mistakes in my medical record or my bill or whatever." And I would always field those, and just to get them in the right department, whether it was billing or medical records or whatever it was. Well, this one lady came in, and it, luckily or not, I remembered her. She was one of my trauma patients. And when I say trauma, she was like in a car accident or something. And she said, "Are you Patrick Scott?" And I said, "Yes." She goes, "Well, you wrote a note in my chart and you said that and she had the copy of the medical record, and she found it. And she said, "You said that, C-spine precaution was cleared, patient stable for transport to CT scan. Uh, you know, I will continue to monitor," whatever I said in my note about monitoring the family or trying to get family to come. And she said that would have never happened. She said, "I don't remember that. And I'm so claustrophobic, there is no frickin' way." Oh, and then in my mental status, I said that she was on conscious, alert, and oriented times 4, which means she knew who she was, she knew where she knew why she was there, she knew the time, the date. She was grossly oriented, which means she was not altered, she was not unconscious. And her concern was that she was so claustrophobic that she said, "I would have never permitted you guys to put me in a CT scanner. I have never been in a CT scanner to my knowledge, and I know that this is a mistake. And what pisses me off about it is that y'all billed my insurance, whatever the fee was, and that's wrong, and I want it taken off." And I said, "Well, ma'am, I was there." And I said, "It's very common for us when we've had a head injury to have what's called retrograde amnesia, where we don't remember the impact and we don't remember for a certain time period after the trauma has concern. The other piece of this is you were in bad shape. You had broken bones, you had some fractures, you were, and while you were able to say your name and your date of birth and you knew who the president was and you knew why you were there, you were upset and you were battling for your very survival. And so the fact that your claustrophobia completely disappeared is not really uncommon and it's not unusual. And I spent about an hour with her and it was very helpful. And she, of course, was very appreciative and said, I had no idea. I just can't imagine. And I said, now you could try it out if you want, but I don't know that knock on the head cured your claustrophobia, because when you aren't in survival mode, that phobia may come back and that kind of thing. So understand that I want for you to be the master of your body, the master, and have seniority over your emotions, mastery over your triggers, over your emotional dysregulation and regulation. And that's the purpose of this particular YouTube Live today. So how do you know you're triggered? A couple of pointers. If you don't remember what came out of your mouth and you were so mad that you don't remember what you said, pretty triggered. If you are reacting to something that even you intellectually can say, wow, why am I so upset about this? Road rage, somebody cuts you off, something happens at work. If you are overreacting, now, of course, the worst thing you can say to someone is, I think you're overreacting. Had a patient yesterday call in a crisis fashion, concerned about their job. And at one point, it was an emergency call. I was in session and it was after 6 and they called him back and they said, what's going on? He goes, well, oh, thank you. I was on with my friend and my friend helped calm me down. There was some changes in the workplace and I just had this panic about that I was going to lose my job. And she accused me of overreacting. And so with you, Dr. Scott, I'm in a much better state now. Maybe I am right. Can I run it by you? Can I offer you this story? And what do you think? Am I about to be terminated or let go? And, I listened and he debriefed what had happened. His boss apparently had quit and his boss's boss had quit. And there was some shifts and changes about higher level people leaving the organization because it was unsatisfying to them. And so for some reason, he got it in his mind that he was going to be fired. I don't know the situation, but I didn't feel like that was the case. And we got off the phone and he felt better because he wasn't hysterical. He was just telling me very calmly, but he had a lot of anxiety and a lot of panic around it. Now, given his history, and I'm not going to go into his history, that would make sense. So and this is the thing about therapy that we kind of laugh about, that all roads lead back to your mother or your father, or you have mommy issues or daddy issues. And it's kind of a joke, but it's kind of true as well. I remember when I was 500 pounds. I was 500 pounds when I was 15. By the time I was 14 or 15, I was just a morbidly obese kid. And later, much later, after I'd lost weight and I was healthier and I was a busy professional, I went to therapy. Because I have been in therapy and I am in therapy and I continue to work on myself and work on my patterns because I think it's great. I think it's important. And I have the luxury to do that. A lot of people don't. And we were looking at what did food signify? What did my body size signify? What, all that stuff. And I just remember blurting out angrily in a session, well, I'm stuffing my feelings, so I might as well stuff my face. And that came out of my life. And I was probably in my mid 30s. I was not overweight at that point. I had lost the weight, but some trigger from stuffing my feelings. Now understand, from a blame and fault perspective, we're all here to learn. And we have some of our most challenging relationships are our greatest teachers. It's very important to understand that the people that you like the least and the people that light you up and light your buttons from a larger perspective have the greatest to teach you. And I know that's kind of counterintuitive. Now, I've also had therapists tell me that sometimes the lesson is to get away from them. If you've got a family member, if you've got a person, and you know, it's just not going well. Sometimes the learning and the lesson is to get away from them. And when that came out of my life, I'm stuffing my feelings. I might as well stuff my life. And then a therapist recently, in the last couple of years, said, "Tell me about your nurturing growing up. Tell me about how you got nurtured." And I went, "Nurtured?" Like it didn't compute. Now, I'm not saying that as a victim. I'm just saying I didn't. I grew up in the '60s with a single parent of three children, and I was the youngest. My older brother and older sister both worked. I was young. I was raised mostly by my older brother and older sister. My mom was working all the time. And so this idea of nurturing, I mean, it wasn't an abusive household. I mean, my needs were met. I wasn't beaten or anything. There was no abuse. There was nothing. We were poor. But when the current therapist said, "Well, let's talk about how you were nurtured," this is up against the relationships I have now. And so I know, conventional wisdom would dictate, well, that's so far in the past. I shouldn't have to worry about that. I shouldn't have to think about that. But to the extent in this moment now you trigger and you light up and you have a negative emotion like anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, you have a limiting belief about yourself, you're self deprecating, oh, I'm such a loser. I'm never going to be good enough. I don't deserve love, whatever that is. That's going to be rooted in old stuff. And that's where the work that we do, whether it's conventional psychotherapy or Huda or Ho'oponopono, the forgiveness exercise, or Ho'oku'u, can be really, really helpful because it's you taking 100% responsibility for your baggage. And only you can clear it. Now, Rome wasn't built in a day. It doesn't happen. Some people will do Ho'oku'u and they'll say, well, I let go of anger once. Why am I still pissed off? And my famous line is, well, yeah, I had kale once too, hated it. Why am I not thin? Or, I went to the gym once or did yoga once or whatever. And so and I think that's also not in the brochure, that therapy isn't a cure. I had a young man yesterday I've been working with for a year. He's made such progress. I had a student in here and she commented that he's made such progress. And he commented that he, as by way of report to her, because she was new to him, how much progress he'd made. And then he even said, I know at our first session, I asked you to hit me on the forehead and cure me, and he said, I realized that that's not realistic. But he said, I do have to reflect over the last year. Things that bothered me a year ago don't bother me. I was having many panic attacks a day. I don't have any anymore. And he listed off kind of almost to his own surprise. Because remember, we live in these bodies. We are not objective about ourselves. And I appreciate Josh's comment. How do you keep de-aging? I need that of Aiku. I'm working on it. I'm working on my health. I've been on a campaign for the last 3 years. And as you all know, the more you do, the more you realize there is to be done. So I started working with a physical therapist to this kind of online program. It's got an app with an iPad, and I do exercises in front of this thing. There's a whole host of exercises I simply can't do. I cannot do floor exercises. I cannot do squats are tough for me. Getting down on the floor is tough for me. I'm standing on one leg, doing that thing where you're stretching your quadriceps and you're trying to pull your leg back. Can't do that without holding onto a chair. My balance is off. I have and I'm older and I've had a lot of orthopedic issues. I have an artificial hip, and I'm learning that even though I look this way and I'm really, really healthy, the next step isn't even so much about muscle development or muscle building. It's about balance. I noticed it today. I had a procedure done last night, which was involved injections, and I've been dizzy today. And I noticed that I was in the bathroom this morning, just out of the shower, and I caught myself like I was starting to fall. And I don't mean to say that this by way of that I'm looking for sympathy. I'm just saying that, for as healthy as I am and all my numbers look good, I'm still kind of unsteady on my feet, which I know shocks many people. So that's what I'm working on. What are you working on? What are your limiting beliefs about yourself? How do you put yourself down? Do you tell yourself, what do you say to yourself? Now, the things you say to yourself may be things someone else said to you as a child. Oh, you're never going to amount to anything. You're not good enough. You're not smart enough. You're not capable. You're to this, to that, to the other thing. So consider, as a result of watching this video, to maybe journal or capture some of those negative things that you say about yourself that just simply aren't true. You can even know that they're not true. Do you feel like an imposter? Sometimes I get that one a lot. Do you feel like you're not good enough? You're not smart enough? Do you feel like you're not worthy of love? Like you'll have a spouse or a partner, or a boyfriend, girlfriend, and now they're just adoring you, and you're like, what? And are you able to receive love? That kind of thing. And so take a moment and just kind of go, okay, now where you're going to look for that, or what are those things that just light you up? I'm going to give you a lot of examples because it's easy. Maybe you're watching the recording and you're sitting, you got a glass of wine and you're relaxing and you find my voice so calming, which a lot of people do. And it's easy to say, well, I'm not triggered now. I mean, geez, well, I've got a glass of wine, I'm relaxing, watching this video. But I want you to think back on when you have lost your mind. I mean, metaphorically, you're vomiting green slime, your head is spun around on your shoulders, you are losing your mind. You're crashing out, according to the Gen Z folks, you're crashing out. And I want you to kind of go backwards in time and figure out what was the trigger to that, you know, like what set that off. And if you take it back far enough and you spend time, so if it's any of my road ragers out there, what is it about driving that sets you off? What are the key features? Is it slow drivers? Is it inconsiderate drivers? Is it phone on the phone drivers? Is it the people that put their makeup on? What is it that really gets you going? I'm just using this as an example. Then trace it back. What does that mean to you? Almost like a dream interpretation. Okay, wow, I was on the freeway today. Somebody cut me off, didn't see me, had their signal on, and just almost hit me, and I had to go out of the way. And I honked, and they, reacted. But what an idiot, So what's coming out of your mouth? What an idiot! Kind of look in. Maybe the finger happened. I don't know. What value does that violate? So you're a good person. You believe in respect. You believe in integrity and success and family, faith, devotion. You might be very religious. Most of our triggers arise out of a perceived values violation. So I'm not a road rager. That is not what I actually may cause road rage. I've noticed that in some places in the world, no matter how fast I drive, it's never fast enough. I am not a left lane hanger outer. I think I'm a good driver. Of course I would. But I notice that sometimes people get frustrated with me. I'm just not going fast enough. I'm only going 55 in a 45 on a surface street in Las Vegas, and somebody, zooms past me at 90. I don't want a ticket. I'm not interested in moving violations. There are some times where people will tailgate, like I'm not going fast enough on the highway or the freeway or whatever, and I will pull over. I'll just pull over to the shoulder, let them pass, because they can't pass or whatever it is. Not worth it. So use road rage as an example. Another pet peeve, and so for me, when I get frustrated with drivers, I think I get frustrated with slow drivers or clueless drivers, but that's not my big thing. I'm pretty chill. Um, in our business in mental health, a mainstay or a constant theme in behavioral health are no-shows, meaning people who make appointments and then don't show up for them. It runs at least 50% of all mental health appointments remain unseen. And I have baggage around it. After all these years, I even with all that I know, and this is an example of a trigger, even with everything that I know and all my schooling, I have rearranged my practice so that I very rarely have a no-show. I had one a couple weeks ago, a veteran who just blew it off. Now, understand with the technology being what it is, you're getting a text reminder, you're getting a phone call, you're getting emails, you're getting 5 or 6 reminders 2-3 days out to remind you. You have to hit confirm. And so this is a situation where our automated system had confirmed this person for a hypnosis session on this day at this time. And there was no call, no show. And it upset me. Now, again, on this grand scheme of things, it was like I got an hour off, but I wanted to understand why this is still so triggering for me. So she came in this week and I said, what happened on March 10th or whenever she missed her last appointment? "Oh, something came up." I said, "Well, okay, let me just be clear. This appointment is for you." "Yeah, I know, I should have called, but I didn't." And she was very cavalier about it. And I said, "I really thought about canceling today's appointment because with me, you get one strike. I'm not your regular therapist. I'm not your doctor. I'm seeing you occasionally for hypnotherapy." And I said, I have a demand, and I wasn't angry, but I was direct. I said, "I have a demand." She goes, "What is it?" I said, "If you're not going to show, give us as much notice because the waiting list is months long and somebody could be taken off the waiting list and put into your spot if you're not going to make it." And I wouldn't let it go. I was very, and I wasn't, I was speaking to her very much like I'm speaking to you right now. "This is what I need. This is my demand." And she goes, "Why are you saying demand?" I said, "Because a request means you can do whatever you want. The consequence to you for your failure to show is I won't see you again, ever. Is that something you want?" She goes, "Well, I just don't think it's that big of a deal." I said, "Well, I do, and I'm in charge. And so if you are unwilling to be accountable with your appointments, I will not see you." And I've also been, because I'm into this whole accountability thing now, I've been watching all sorts of service people, hairdressers and servers and bartenders and police officers with this whole public accountability thing. And I think it's really great where how people manage their reservations for restaurants, how they manage their hair appointments, their nail appointments. Um, and I realize statistically what gets on TikTok or what gets on YouTube is probably these are staged or whatever, but it does call forth this idea about how are your boundaries. I used to be much more of a people pleaser than I am now. I used to be much more willing to let things slide than I am now. And I'm trying not to be bitter or angry, but I'm clear what we in our group supervision last hour, we talked about what language is acceptable in your office. To what degree can a patient use profanity? Are there certain words I'm speaking to them, are there certain words you don't tolerate in your office? Because it may be small, a little therapy room, but it's yours and you're in charge. You're the clinician, you're the professional, and if you get to determine your level of tolerance of conflict, of confrontation. And one of them said, "I don't allow any name calling if I'm working with a couple. There's no name calling." Another person said, "I won't allow the N word." Another person said, "I won't take another word to describe Jewish people," and so on. She said, "There's," and then others of them said, and I can't remember what the exact case was. Oh, one of the clinicians said, I hate it when people call me resilient." We didn't understand the context for it, so she explained. She said, "I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and it's almost like a cop out. Yeah, I'm resilient, but what's your point?" But she clearly had a charge on that word that none of the rest of us had. So this is about your boundaries. What will you tolerate? What won't you tolerate? Um, I had a lot of grumpy people when I changed my attendance policy. In a nutshell, basically, if you're going to see me, and this is not obviously not a sales pitch, I'm not selling it very well. If you're going to see me as a therapist, you're going to pay in advance for 5 to 10 sessions in full. And if you don't show, you pay anyway. There is no show fee. There is no late fee that is not waived. You pay anyway. Now, of course, if there's blood, if you're in the hospital, if you got sick, I totally understand and I'll waive it. But I have to tell you, when people's money, when they have to put their money where their mouth is, all of a sudden I can count on one hand in probably 5, 6 years that I never, very rarely will I have a no-show because people are going to pay. Now I have a 48-hour window. You give me 48 hours before your business hours before your scheduled appointment that you'd like to reschedule. We can put somebody on the waiting list in, and they get to be in. And I know that this is nationwide because I know I do the same thing with my doctors. When I wanted to see dermatology in Minnesota, it was a year, and they put me out a year. I said, "Well, I could be dead in a year. We realize that. We're going to put you on the waiting list." Then they've moved me up now since to August. And then they moved me up and got me in earlier. So it happens that way. Um, so, what are your pet peeves? No shows still really trigger me. I'm doing my very best to not let them, but it's a philosophical thing. I have a hard time with people that don't value or respect other people's time. Um, are there issues around money? I tend typically am a pretty generous person. I'm a good tipper. Um, Josh is asking, do red lights trigger you still? No, I have really shifted that. Josh is on the call today, and he used to ride in the car with me, and I would get so impatient. And I think I'm just older and mellower. I don't get triggered by red lights anymore. Although the lights here in Las Vegas are, I think, the longest in the world, I think. Um, it's neither here nor there. Do you get triggered about money? Been watching a lot of videos on the people who, and I don't, and it's so interesting. I'm a member of Quora, so I comment there, and Psychology Today, and I comment there, and so I get asked to weigh in on certain things, and I and I'm curious about people's pet peeves. There's a big thing now about people not sitting in their assigned airplane seat. And if you fly and you get to your seat and someone's sitting in it, and they say, well, I have my seat's a middle seat in the back, but I need to sit next to my wife or my kid or my dog or whatever it is. Can you switch with me to your aisle seat for a middle seat, 20 rows back? And there's this huge commentary about why would you do that? Now, I just last week changed seats with a married couple. They bought their tickets the last minute. I was in an aisle seat. And the guy just said, would you mind? This is also an aisle seat. Would you mind moving up a row so I can sit with my wife? I was like, no, absolutely not. Doesn't bother me at all. And so but I'm not going to give up a really nice exit row seat for your middle seat in the back because you didn't plan, that kind of thing. A lot of thing about that. Group dinners. Does this ever happen to you where you go out for a dinner with a group of people? Some of them you may know or not. And how is the check split? Now I'm the one that'll usually pick up the check. I also don't go out that much, and I have people that I go out with, and usually pick up the whole check, or we're all contributing, or we're going Dutch, and it's just not an issue. Apparently, with a lot of women, particularly young women, they all go out and they drink it up and eat it up, and they have these huge tabs, and then they're expecting somebody else to pay. Typically, the man at the table, or that kind of thing. So there's a lot of that going on, and then there's a lot the camp of we're going to split the check 6 ways. Your portion is this, and the person that says, "Well, I just had a salad and a Sprite. I'm not going to. I didn't have a steak. I didn't have a bottle of wine. I'm not going to be spending $200 when what I ate was about $18." So there's that going on. So I'm curious about that. If that's a trigger for you. A lot of times the triggers happen in our families of origin because of the history. So one thing that I've noticed is a lot of times if you're a younger sibling, you're the baby of the family, that your older siblings may not see you as an adult, and they may treat you like you're still 7 years old. I know that was the case in my family. And it was nice when my brother and sister started acknowledging that maybe I knew something, even though I was the youngest, that I wasn't, total idiot. And that was nice to hear. But, they just haven't updated their filters. My brother's funny. He's got a lot of education. I think he was in school until he was 55 or something. I mean, it was just so much school, doctorate, the whole thing. But in high school, he was not, I wouldn't say he was a scholar. He was an athlete. He was in football and wrestling. He was an athlete, but he was not, I wouldn't call him a scholar, even though he went to college right out of high school. But he and his wife have run into people in the community that he went to high school with. And, he's introducing his wife. This is my wife, Lorna, and it's really great. And I don't know. Somehow, what do you do? I'm a psychologist. You? Yeah, me. You? It's funny now because, of course, he's very accomplished. He's extraordinarily bright. He's retired now. He's had a wonderful, illustrious career. But the memory of him in high school was probably like he was a jock and maybe not too bright, like that. So you have an opportunity. So figure out what your triggers are, identify them, and then do an interpretation. What is the core wound? Is this, and I'm going to give them to you and you can write them down. The core wound is going to be the deepest, darkest thing that dare not speak its name. Number one, I'm not lovable, which is a fear that people have, that they're just not lovable. They'll never find love. They'll never find a relationship because they're not lovable. Now, as I'm saying these, understand these are not rational. They are not even true, but they're what we do with our trauma and our history. So I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough, or its cousin, I'm not enough. So if you grew up in a very high achieving family, had a parent that was very pushy and demanding, you may have a not good enough or not enough scenario going on where it feels like even though you're long out of the house, you feel like it's never enough. No matter what you do, it's never enough. Another one is I don't exist. where you have more of an existential, like, what's my purpose here? Like, why am I here? What am I doing? And if you're religious, what does God want for me? What am I supposed to be doing here? Am I just a good parent? Is that it? So the I don't exist is really kind of connecting to your purpose, and that's a core wound where you just don't feel real, and that kind of thing. Um, a whole host of I'm too this, too that, too the other thing, too loud, talk too much, whatever those are. Another one would be, just trying to think, and these are big, big categories, and so you can find worthy of love is a big one. I'm not worthy, you know, I'm just not worthy, you know, not worthy of success, not worthy of abundance, not worthy of love, not worthy of a relationship, not worthy of these kids, and not worthy of this job, that kind of thing. Imposter syndrome, big in my business. People come to us and they think we know what we're doing, and we're trying to figure it out just like everyone else is. So anyway, those are some examples of core wounds. If you can get to the core wound, you have a better chance of clearing it and releasing it using some of the techniques that we talk about, ho'oku'u and ho'oponopono, and things like that, or your own therapy. EMDR is really helpful for this. So this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to spend some time quietly and excavate your triggers, excavate what really gets you going, what some of your pet peeves, just pick one, and then try to identify and trace it back. You know, um, my never enough core wound came from my mom because now my joke is, and people who are Asian laugh, my mom was like an Asian dad. And people who are Asian get it, they laugh like crazy. But my mom, it was, if you got an A, no, if you got a B, why didn't you get an A? If you got an A, why didn't you get an A plus? If you got an A plus, why did you take the class? And it was that couldn't win scenario, that no matter what. Now, it has served me well. I'm doing pretty well, and I turned out the other end pretty achieving and all that kind of stuff. But the core wound is sometimes I do feel like it's just never enough. No matter what I do, it's never enough. And that at 66, it's not huge in my life anymore, but I know that when I'm having a kind of a visceral feeling of negativity or whatever around a particular activity, and I work in healthcare administration where it is truly never enough. Uh, and there's never enough money, never enough time, never enough people, never enough staff, never enough regulations, like that. So take a look at what your core wound is and how it triggers you, and then spend some time, and then maybe check out our Ho'oku'u or our classes online. Coming up a week from today, we have Realm Travel in San Diego. We just found a new location that's on the website. And we have an STFU class, both virtual and in person, also in San Diego or online. And that's next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. They are two different classes. You don't have to come to all three. You can come to a half a day on Friday or the full 2 day, 6 hours, 12 hours over 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And those are the really fun classes. If you'd like to tap into your psychic, your intuition, if you'd like me to read you, because I do readings in that Realm Travel class, I just read. So, and then Josh can't wait for Huna. And then later this month, we have a Huna level 1 class. And so if that intrigues you, it's also on the website. It is online only. It is 2 weekends, April 25th and 26th, and May 2nd and 3rd. It's over Zoom. It is an intensive class. It's much less expensive than going to Hawaii. And I'm told that you get all the standard practices, meaning you learn all the techniques, you do all the meditations, you get all the release work, you get all the content that you would get in Hawaii. You just don't get Hawaii. I mean, I may play some music that's Hawaiian, but that's about it. So if you've been interested and curious about Huna, that would be a great start. It's the least expensive possibility. It is accessible to everyone. It's online only. You don't have to go anywhere, but you do have to take 9-10 hours Saturday, Sunday to be there for 4 days, and that's a commitment. And then, as I mentioned earlier, in the summer, July 15th, I believe, we're starting a level 3 class, which is the first time that any other Kumu besides Kumu Mat has done a level 3 class, and certainly not outside of Hawaii. This was one done last year in Japan that Kumu Mat taught. So I'm the first one to do a level 3. So if you have completed levels 1 and 2 with any teacher in the world, you qualify for level 3, and you can do that with me. It's a 5-day class, the 15th through the 19th, and it is also in San Diego. We have found a lovely Native American tribal area that, I mean, it's going to be in a hotel, but the area is very indigenous. There's a lot of really cool energy there. So that's level three. Huna. So I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful weekend, and we will talk to you next time.